I bought Han Solo's pistol from Darth Vader. If you didn't know already, James Earl Jones, the actor that played Darth Vader among many other well-known roles,
I'm King Joffrey Joffer, ruler of Zamunda,
passed away just a few days ago. What many people don't know about him is he was a huge firearms collector. He practically had his own museum. And this Mauser C96 came out of his collection. So the Mauser C96 was an incredibly prolific handgun of the early 1900s, particularly in China. After this little thing called the Boxer Rebellion, China entered into an arms treaty which prohibited them from getting certain military weapons. Luckily for us, the C96 was considered to be a police weapon and thus was allowed for import, which started the Chinese love affair with the box cannon. These things were absolutely everywhere. Every warring Chinese faction had to get their hands on these things. So this gun is like a 2-for-1 special. It is a Chinese locally produced frame with a German parts kit that went to China and then came back to the US out of China, which makes this one super cool. It's got all sorts of crazy history to it. Now, I had to do a ton of hand fitting to get the German parts working on the essentially counterfeit Chinese frame, which took quite a bit of time, but I think the end result was very worth it. From showing this gun to some friends, one of the immediate concerns that was raised was the quality of the Chinese frame. Like, is this thing gonna blow up and hurt you? To answer that question, no, not really. Whoa! Most of the pressure-bearing components on the C96, or rather all of them, have to do with the upper receiver, bolt, lock frame, and all that. And the lower receiver functions similarly to like an AR-15 in that way, where it doesn't really see a lot of the force other than like recoil impact. So I think it's gonna work, but one way to find out. All right, so we're gonna start with one round, see what it does. All right. Well, that was a good start. Whenever you're testing an unknown gun, I like to do one round first, then do two. So with two, you can see if the gun is gonna run away on you or not, and then go from there. So, let's try two. Having trouble with the trigger resetting. There we go. All right, let's check out the casing. Cool, brass looks fine. Since I just did a bunch of, barrel and chamber work on it, I was just looking at the brass, see if we have any bulging or anything from a feed ramp going too deep or false headspace or something weird, but no, we're good to go. We do have that trigger reset problem. Not much I could do about that here on the range, so I think we'll just keep playing with it, where you have to shake it to get it to reset and keep going. Well, normally these things are meant to be loaded with stripper clips, but I don't have any. So while I struggle through the reload, let's talk about some history about this gun. So these things were brought in the 70s and 80s out of China. From a company called FedArm, or Federal Ordnance, I think, actually. And these dudes told the story in Small Arms Review magazine of how they got a fax from a guy in Hong Kong who said, "Hey bro, come to Hong Kong. We have a bunch of spare guns. Come on out, buy some, bring them in. It'll be great." And they decided to go for it. Sure enough, it turned out to be legit. So they brought in who knows how many, tens of thousands of these, roached out C96s. And back in the day, you could buy them in packs of 5 or 10, and they would show up at your door or at your FFL or whatever in a burlap sack. And just a straight up potato sack full of broom handle Mausers. You get to pick through them and find if any of them were still usable. So that's most likely what these came from. Almost there, we got one more. All right. There we go. Well, let's see how I can shoot it. You wanna watch me miss? The trigger not resetting, man. There we go. Almost. Oh, I had it. That's so sketchy. There you go. Oh, you can feel it catch and then it slips back off. There we go. Oh, almost had it. Come on.
Oh, you almost had it. You gotta be quicker than that.
There you go. Ah, I lost it again. Oh, this is painful. Big flinch too. Oh, it's because it didn't go back into battery. Let's try that again.
Oh.
Yeah, it's having a lot of friction on the magazine. I think part of that is this Chinese frame. Like I mentioned, I had to do a bunch of hand fitting, but one of the things that I couldn't fit was the inside of the mag well. It's a little too wide, and the rounds just aren't stacking right, and it's creating a lot of friction on the bolt. So, well, let's keep going though. Oh, now it's the trigger. Oh, caught it, I think. And I'm still fighting that trigger. All right, there we go. See if I can go for a small target. You know, the recoil impulse on this thing is actually not as bad as I thought. It's a little sharp, but it's honestly, it's pretty fun. It's kind of unique. So, let's keep going. Oh, another malfunction. So here's what I was talking about. It's like the bolt goes forward with enough velocity that we got a live round in the chamber, but the bolt is just stuck on the magazine. Just give it a little click, and we're forward, we're back in battery. So I'll see if there's something I can do about that. Maybe I can make some shims for the magazine well, but I figure I'm not gonna shoot this thing a lot. I don't wanna risk breaking something on it, especially with the provenance of this one. But you know, you gotta shoot it for the video. There we go. And it locks open on the last round. Pretty cool. You know, despite having a few issues here, I think it's still pretty cool. And that's, I think that's very excusable for a 100-year-old handgun made out of 2 different guns that was hand-fitted by some idiot in a shed. So not too bad. So you can see down inside here, all of the bare metal is all of the areas I had to cut away to fit the original German parts to the Chinese knockoff frame. So I got super lucky on this thing, and it turns out that the way they screwed this up was that all of the dimensions were too tight. Which means, you know, you can just cut it away. No welding or anything sketchy like that. So that was super cool and very lucky. The next custom thing I had to make was this trigger spring here. So it turns out that the height of the frame here is a lot different on this Chinese knockoff than a real one. So if I hold them side by side, see, it's a good bit different. It's probably like an 1/8 inch taller. Which means this little plunger that goes through there sits a lot lower to reach out the bottom and still retain the floor plate. So I had to make the trigger spring. This one's an original just to show you what it looks like. And I cheated. I bought a sheet of spring steel and I just laser cut it out of there, bent it, heat treated it, and threw it in there, and we're good to go. The next thing I did to it was a process called relining, where you drill out the barrel and then you put a little thin sleeve in there that has new rifling in it. Because these guns, having come from China after being abused for 60, 70 years, who knows, most of them are completely shot out to the point that there's not even something resembling rifling left inside. On top of being shot out, these guns were originally chambered in 7.63 Mauser. And since it's shot out, it's not original anymore anyways. I figure there's no harm in redoing them to 9mm, which a lot of these guns came in. So here's a barrel liner as you get it, just a, you know, rifled piece of steel. You drill out the barrel, you install the liner, and when you're done, now it shoots 9mm. One of the interesting engineering choices on this gun is actually that the barrel and the receiver are all machined from one piece of steel. This is very impressive machining, super old school, old world gunsmith type stuff. But this is not, that looks like a threaded joint, it's not. That's just a step in the barrel. This is all one piece. Super cool. But that leads to having to reline the barrel as opposed to just swapping a barrel or something like that. If the cartridges don't stack just right when you're loading it, it can be very difficult to get the next one in. So it takes a while to reload without the stripper clips. I think part of our issue here as well is that this recoil spring might be a little bit old and tired. I thought I put a new one in, but I could be mistaken. It's probably sitting in the project bin. So I just put some 100 grain frangibles in there, just for the hell of it, see what they do. So we got the trigger reset problem again. See if I can get it. What's going on, I think, is that little puzzle piece I showed earlier has a little leaf spring. It kicks it back up. It's kind of like your disconnector. And the leaf spring is super old and kind of short. It's not kicking that connector back up, so the trigger's missing it. So you got to kind of shake it to get it to fall into place, like that. There's the failure to feed again, or failure to close, I guess. I don't know what to call that. You just take light thumb pressure and it closes. So it's probably recoil spring. Maybe like that. No. All right, that's probably enough shooting. We're just gonna break it. So that's how you have to unload one of these manually. You can drop the floor plate, I guess, if you want to shoot rounds and parts everywhere. But there she is, 100 years later, barrel relined, parts matched together and kind of working again. Just for the heck of it, I think I'm gonna fix the trigger problem and then frame this on the wall with the certificate. Out of all the insanely cool and wild history behind this gun, the coolest bit has got to be that it came out of the collection of the late and great James Earl Jones. His firearms collection was so extensive that he had private buyers going around the country buying guns for his collection. And whenever those buyers would find a better example of something he already had, he would sell the gun under consignment. And the coolest part of how he handled all this situation was he specifically dictated that his guns could not have his name attached to them until after they were sold, so that he wouldn't be affecting market prices of guns by having his name on them. I think the fact that he didn't put his name on the guns really shows that he actually cared about the guns and his collection, and he wasn't in it just for making a few dollars off of flipping some stuff. Some cool little facts about his collection. You know, a lot of this is going to be impossible to verify, but just picking up bits and pieces here and there. So if you heard of the Walther WA-2000, absolute holy grail of a gun. I think there's like 8 of them in the country or something like that. The dude had 2 of them.
Oh my God!
And if you dig around the internet for long enough, you'll find other people who have James Earl Jones guns. The consignor he was selling them through would call you after you buy the gun and tell you, hey, this gun was out of Mr. Jones's collection, would you like a certificate to go with it? So of course I went for it. I don't have it with me, but here's a picture. And if you look around online enough, you'll see some other people who have the same certificate. And there's a few stories of people who got to see some of his collection. You know, friends of friends, take it with a grain of salt. But seems that everybody agrees this dude had a museum worth of stuff. On top of having an absolutely baller collection, the dude was also a Second Amendment activist. He actually caught some heat on the news a couple times for talking about how normal citizens should be armed. I think it's very stand-up of him to potentially sacrifice getting new gigs and roles or whatever to truly speak what he actually thought about the Second Amendment in a place like Hollywood where that's very verboten. I think every other video on my channel has had something to do with AKs. So if you like this change of pace, let me know and I'll do more videos like this. I have a lot of really weird stuff hanging around in my collection. If you're not subscribed, I'll show you who shot first.